It says you're recording on local computer.
Okay. And I have two little red dots on the Read AI and me. Does that sound right?
Yep. Great.
Okay.
All right.
Here we go. All right. All right. Welcome, Brett, to the Biohacker Babes podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be with you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, we're really excited to hear what you're doing. Some really cool stuff. And I just want to say, as health practitioners, we understand that it's not just about what our clients are doing in their own self-care time. We always talk about like biohacking in a corner is not as valuable as integrating your behaviors into your family life, your community, and even your work life. I think we can be eating the cleanest nutrition and doing all of that, but if we're not connecting, we're missing a huge opportunity. And you have bridged this gap beautifully through your own healing journey and now in your ventures with Gravity. So we'd love to hear your story and how you came to learn the importance of conscious living.
Yeah, sure. Happy to share that with you. Just a little bit of background on me. And, I think it's important because I believe that our lives are really there to serve us so that we can create from that place and ultimately in service of other people. And so, we all come to the work that we do one way or another. In my case, I've sort of been drawn towards building community, really from an early age, and finding that in different places, most of which, didn't actually make a lot of sense until later in life. But, finding community through music and through art and through athletics and friends and in all kinds of places that really were very supportive to me at various stages in my life. Can think of them really as healing in various stages of my life. As a teen, and even younger, had my challenges and struggles, divorced family and, some chaos and stuff that, lands in the body, as you guys know, can be very traumatic and difficult. And, that all sort of led me, in a path that, had me seeking out ways to soothe or to feel better, and to be connected and to be a part of something that, maybe I was lacking or looking for. And, all of that journey, has really ultimately led me to building communities, the communities that I always wanted myself. And yeah, that's what we're doing with Gravity and doing, both in the physical space and virtually. And yeah, I'm happy to get into all of that with you.
Awesome. Yeah, I think maybe we take a step back for some people. Like, what is a conscious community? Maybe some people aren't even really sure what that really means.
No,
Like,
I'm
what's that
sure.
definition to you?
Yeah, I'm sure they're not, because, it's sort of new in a lot of ways, and a lot of different language is being used. Some people call it intentional, purposeful, inspired. We're using the word conscious, consciously using that word because, to us, although it sounds sort of maybe woo-woo or aspirational, really what it is, it's about curating a community, really consciously thinking about how it is we can build a place for people to live and work and and come and visit and enjoy. And we're really thoughtfully, consciously creating that, in a way that hopefully makes a big difference in the lives of the people that we're engaging with, in the communities, in the broader cities, ultimately, in an attempt to make a difference in the world. And so specifically, what that means is starting with the design of the space, creating spaces that are really energetically feeling a way that hopefully makes a difference in people's lives. There's a lot of art and architecture and design, greenery, open space, light, etc. Music, sound, sense that really, hopefully, automatically just make a difference in how people feel. And really at the core of it is then the experience that people get the opportunity to have, which includes a tremendous amount of programming, events, opportunities for people to learn, connect. There's meditation studios, yoga studios. We say gravity in particular is focused on well-being, creative expression, and impact. So what we really want to do is just meet people where they are. It doesn't have to be one thing for all people. Some people will engage through something more spiritual, like a meditation practice. Some people might engage through the arts. Some people might engage through entrepreneurship, but just finding a way for people to connect to each other, to connect to maybe something deeper inside of them, to just help support them on the path of living more consciously.
Yeah.
That really
That's
resonates
incredible.
with what we do, meeting people where they're at. I'm really curious who your avatar and market is, because I'm like, sign me up. This sounds like it
Yeah.
is for me. But I live in New York City, a place where people often can't get their trash to the trash can. I live in a building where there's a beautiful rooftop and greenery. I'm often the only person up there. And somehow
Yeah.
my presence is not magnetic enough to get other people up there. Like, how do we get people to even desire to live this way?
Yeah, I think, listen, I live in Columbus, Ohio, where, gravity's based currently. And so, you can ask the same question, you've got Midwestern people. Are they interested in this kind of thing? Is it something that, people will gravitate to? And, that's why it's really important that we're trying to just meet people where they are. And I think more and more people, thanks to podcasts like yours and others, are starting to think about this. They're starting to think about why they're here and how they're living and how they feel. And they want to feel good. They want to be happy. They want to do the things, and a lot of them have become very trendy in a good way. The whole biohacking space is changed quite a bit. It's now pretty popular. So which is great. We find that, people are willing to get in a cold plunge or sit in a sauna or have some sort of mindfulness practice. People are interested in exploring that part of themselves. And so, we just have to try to find ways for people to put their toe in the water. And, that's why, we're offering such a wide variety of offerings. And I think, it starts to, build off of one thing leads to the next. One person is up on the rooftop and, you can, really get
Collect
some momentum
some
that way.
friends.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking back to we were at the biohacking conference a couple months ago, and I think Lauren and I would agree. Our big takeaway was just like the community. Like the tickets are not cheap, but we basically paid that just to go hang out with our community. I mean, the lectures are great too, but it's like in today's day and age, you can listen to all of those speakers on YouTube and podcasts. Like you can get the information, but we just
Yeah.
wanted to like be with our people and hang out and talk. And yeah, I think like that's just such a missing piece for a lot of people. And I'm actually curious, do you think there's like an ancestral component to this? Like, I mean, when you think about like our ancestors, they lived, they worked, they did everything in community, before people started moving away from each other. Do you think, are we trying to get back to what our ancestors had? Maybe with
Yeah.
more technology, but
Well, yeah, no, that's a great question. Yes, I do, but I think I could get sort of, pretty spiritual, kind of woo woo with you about this. I mean, I believe that our nature is to be one with all things. And that is sort of how we're born into this world and how we've always been born into this world. And that this is just my belief system, but I believe that, we come from an energy. I call it God, but you call it whatever you want, source or spirit, or insert whatever feels right to you, that is one. And And so we want to be connected to each other, all coming from that place. So yeah, it's been probably, generations and going back, to the beginning of time, that people have had some desire to feel connected. And yeah, I think over time, you lose that, life gets in the way, or maybe certain things have caused us to separate. A lot of people are concerned about technology and kids, and they're in their phones. And I actually don't see it that way at all. I think tech is like sort of a gift from God that we actually can, if we use it properly, can actually even be more connected. I mean, look, we're, doing this right now. You two are in opposite parts of the country. I'm in a third part of the country. We're, staring at each other, looking into each other's eyes, pretty connected. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really something deep down that we all desire. And I think you're right to be in person in a community, and that can be virtual too, but like to actually live somewhere, to work somewhere, to go to a conference and to be with people is a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. And I love that you said
Energy.
that tech can actually be a gift. My inbox has been flooded over the last couple of weeks about how social media is really driving depression, anxiety, even suicide. But I got into this debate with a friend of mine recently that I think if you use it right, like you said, we can actually be more connected. And I know for myself on social media, I've gained so many opportunities. I've connected with so many other people. So it really is being conscious in the use of it. I'm
Yeah.
curious. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's both, right? I mean, you can't ignore the fact that it is causing some people to be all
Totally.
those things, and that is something we need to be cognizant of, and is concerning. So it is a matter of, like everything, really, like how are you being with it? It can be addictive, just like exercise can be addictive. There's a lot of things, right? Some are more healthy for you than others, but it's really more, how are you choosing to be with it?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I'm curious in your own life, how has isolation played, or isolation versus connection played a role in your health specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I've felt like a tremendous amount of isolation in my life, but I have found that, being an entrepreneur, talking about consciousness in Columbus, Ohio, it can be isolating. And finding communities. I'm fortunate to also be a part of, many networks full of entrepreneurs and creatives and hackers and people that are thinking and doing things in this space. And when you are around people that you relate to, that you connect to, that understand you, and that you can support each other, it does totally change how you feel. And so that's a big part of what I'm trying to create. I've been fortunate in some ways that I've been able to travel to New York and to LA and to around the world, to find people and to um, use modalities that weren't available here, at my fingertips. But not everybody can do that. And so that's, again, what we're trying to create is a place for people to have access to all the things that hopefully make them feel better, that improve their lives right where they live.
Yeah.
Access
Yeah.
is so important.
Yeah. And I think that is a big thing that's missing in I would say in the biohacking or wellness space is like a lot of people think biohacking is so expensive, and it can be when you have to buy your own cold plunge, your own sauna, your ARX, your Carol bike, like when you buy all these things. But like if we can create these communities or biohacking centers where we can all share the things, we can all get healthier together and save a lot of money. So I guess I'm kind of curious, like for people that don't live in Columbus, Ohio, like what can we do to connect with other people and like meet other people? I actually was at a sound bath journey a couple weeks ago, and I was like, how do I get everyone's phone number that is here right now?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
stand at the exit. Like, do you want to be my friend? Do you want to be my friend?
Right,
Oh
right.
God, people are finding the back door.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It's like,
first of all, we're hopefully going to be bringing, we have Gravity and also our greenhouse community, which is really more biohacking focused. We're going to try to scale that and bring those communities across the country. I think that um, more specifically to like the hacking piece, and I heard actually Lewis Howes was on my podcast yesterday, and he was talking about um how he prefers to do things that are free, and I think sometimes we miss that. Everybody can turn on their shower and make it cold. You don't have to have a cold plunge. You can find nature. You can sit somewhere on a park bench and breathe in the air and stop and look at the trees and let that get into you. You can always find a way to move. um so there's always ways to incorporate things that make you feel better. You don't need money. You don't have to have all the tools. They're nice, and some of them, are better, right? But that's for starters. As far as like the connection piece in the community, I think that it's more out there and available than people might think, and it's kind of like everything else. Like, raise your hand, you know. Be vulnerable, ask somebody, on social media, hey, who's interested in this? Where do I go for that? Does anybody know where there's a sound bath, this week? I mean, I think, if you actually put yourself out there, you raise your hand, you're willing to be vulnerable, people are everywhere and interested and being connected.
It's really
yeah,
good advice.
great.
It may be a tough one. I'm
Definitely.
such an introvert. I'm like, oh, fuck.
R-
I'll put myself
Right.
out there. Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
you're not alone. There's plenty of other introverts out there. I am too,
Yeah.
and you just kind of have to take that first step.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So, can you explain the Gravity Project to us and how you're thinking about this kind of globally? And then I would love to hear, like, what do the developments in the buildings look like, feel like? What can someone experience when they walk in?
Sure. So Gravity, like I said, we say it's focused on well-being, creative expression, and impact. And Columbus, which is our first and largest project, it's actually the largest conscious community in the world, and it currently makes up about 15 acres. There's about 7 different buildings, lot of apartments, office, retail. There's event spaces, rooftops, a lot of placemaking. It's filled with art. We just are actually starting a what we call an experience park, which is like, imagine like a permanent Burning Man installation. Food trucks, live music stages, muralist. We just completed our first of what will be an annual event called Mural Fest, where we had muralists come in from all over the world. There's, like I said, meditation. We have a transcendental meditation center. So there's, people daily practicing, learning meditations. There's, live music stages, just events that are happening kind of around the clock, every day. Uh, Quarterly, we try to bring in some larger speakers, workshops. We have the podcast where we're bringing in guests to share the content that's happening in the physical space, virtually. So yeah, it continues to expand. Like I said, we now have our greenhouse concept, which is a little bit more hyper focused. We say greenhouse is about also well-being, but nature and transformation. So we're building a community within a community. Greenhouse is also a part of the Gravity campus, but it will live independently too, and that's really for people that are interested in the kind of nature transformation hacking piece of it all. Gravity is a little bit more eclectic, but Greenhouse's amenities are focused on cold plunges and saunas and treatment rooms. And we're doing this tiny habit transformation program. So everybody that lives in the community gets a Whoop, And, every month they'll work on something specific, hydration, movement, relationships, gratitude, journaling, um, food, et cetera. So yeah, that's what makes up, our community.
So cool. So
So
if you're a
cool.
resident,
Yeah.
if as a resident, do you have access to all of these things, or they're kind of like tiered levels of engagement?
No, if you're a resident, you have access to all of these things. And then, some of the events that we do, many of them are also open to the public. So, there'll be some private events that are just for residents. And then a lot of, our bigger events, the speakers, et cetera, are really for the broader community as well.
And with the Whoop band, is there someone like specific that helps people with that? Or it's just kind of like, here you go, look at your data, figure things out. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, no, so yeah, and that's, specific to the greenhouse community, but each month you get a box and there's sort of instructions on what it is that you're going to be working on. And then there's, Facebook groups, and we'll do, live events where somebody's coming in and talking about the benefits of whatever it is that we're working on that month. It might be cold therapy. And so you've got somebody that, is there to answer questions, kind of help introduce it to you, and then, correspond with you throughout the month. But mostly what we're trying to do is facilitate the community to engage with each other and dialogue and say, hey, this worked for me, or I'm struggling here, or I, heard this, on Huberman or whatever. And, that month, the group as a whole is working on something collectively.
That's awesome.
You got to
Wow.
get Huberman there, and then they'll just all swarm like ants.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Lewis is coming in September,
Oh,
and
that's a
he's
good
doing
one.
this
That's a
big
good one.
event here. And yeah, we've talked to Dave Asprey and Ben Hardy and James Clear and others. So they'll, kind of hopefully all be engaged in one way or another throughout the year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What a
but
great
love to have
group.
Huberman. He'd be awesome, no doubt.
Yeah, yeah. He's a tough one to get a hold of, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually we just had a podcast with someone, and I think maybe down the road there could be a connection there. He is
Oh.
building the new company is called Resolution, but the idea is I guess somewhat making healthcare a little bit more accessible and just improving it for people, where like they would do an annual full body MRI, blood test, for very, very inexpensive. But he was saying the missing piece is to take that and then have this. I think he even used the word conscious community. Or Lauren, do you remember what he called it? And he's like, we need to bridge the gap
That's right.
there. And I'm like, well, we're going to talk to Brett and see what he's up to. But like, I think that these two things are the future of getting people healthier in America. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got aging parents, and yeah, I think there is a gap that needs to be filled in, kind of the health aspect of it, not just for older people, but in general, and the housing community piece of it. We haven't quite figured out how to match those two things up, and I do think there's a great opportunity. And yeah, I'd love to get connected to the guest and see there's an opportunity for us to help bridge that gap.
Yeah, that would be
Two
pretty awesome.
awesome innovators. Something you said a couple of minutes ago is just sticking in the front of my mind. You mentioned art as a really big component. And as a biohacker, I don't feel like that's super present in the space. We don't talk a lot about how art benefits our health. I'm just kind of curious, like, what does art mean to you, and how do you think that translates into our overall well-being, mental, even spiritual health? Why is that important?
Yeah, I think it's, when you think about health, oftentimes I think most people think about it from the standpoint of more medically, and maybe that extends into nutrition, or maybe it extends into things like mindfulness and meditation practice, or now, a lot of the biohacking people now will associate health benefits with all of those modalities. But, oftentimes I think people don't really give enough credit to other things that really do help in the healing or the feeling and energetic shift. I mean, I think it's pretty well documented that while listening to music, people can pick up their pace if they're running, right? You feel that. That's an energy that you feel. Art, I think, is the same thing. When you look at something, you have a feeling towards it. When you are creating something, there's an energetic relationship there. I happen to paint. It's also one of those things we were talking before we started, about playing music. I do that not for other people, but I do that because the energy of it feels really good to me. It feels energizing. I call that healing. And I think there's a lot of different ways for people to do things that make them feel better, right? Which to me is health and wellness. And so one of the things that, we've really tried to do in building conscious community and doing with Gravity is recognizing that there are barriers mentally and others that keep people from even meditating, right? Or, saying yoga's not for me. Well, it might not be for everybody, right? I think everybody could benefit from it, but maybe you'll get something more out of painting or looking at art or listening to music. There's a lot of different ways for people to, start that process of healing, of wellness.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
encouraging the personalization is important because I can think of a lot of people in my circle that if I said, "Do you want to go to an art gallery?" they would say, "Heck no, that sounds
Mm,
boring to me." But
right.
like exploring other modalities of art, and you got me inspired when you said, or excited when you said Burning Man, because
Mhm.
art is such a big part of that journey going into the desert and experiencing that awe that you feel when you look at art, but also knowing that it's temporary because it kind of puts some urgency and really kind of clicks us into the reality of life being not forever, right?
Mhm.
This like
Yeah.
in this physical
Yeah.
body, it's finite. And so I think you're right. More people need to find ways to enjoy art and creation in their own way that could bring them joy. In the same way that we do exercise, right?
Yeah.
There's not like one type of exercise that's going to make everyone happy.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I mean, the Burning Man sort of style of art might capture people that otherwise might not be interested in going to a museum or going to a gallery, right? So that's sort of the fun part of, street art, muralist, public art. You can art in general. I mean, it can be anything, right? And, I do think there's an opportunity to create art to um, you know, create, a lot of different things that meet people again where they are and what they're interested in. And some people that might not think of themselves as interested in art, you know, look at a Burning Man sculpture and go, wow, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
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 Love that.
Yeah. So who is this really for? Is it like a conscious community? Would you say for everyone, or like, I don't know,
Yeah.
singles that are in their 20s, or is it for families with kids? Like,
Yeah. Well, selfishly, and this is, not great textbook marketing, but we say it is for everyone. Everyone that's actually interested in uh, being on the journey of life and somehow, being connected, collaborating, learning, growing, being inspired, finding passion, sharing passion. I don't believe that's specific to any one demographic. Um, Now, who's living in our communities? We don't have a lot of families. We're building multifamily apartments in urban settings. And so that's not naturally going to attract a lot of young children. But do young kids and families come and look at the art and see the sculptures and play in the park and listen to the music and be active and do the things that we're doing, attend the events that we have? Absolutely. Absolutely. We see a lot of young professionals, we see some empty nesters, but yeah, ultimately, hopefully there's something for everybody.
yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm like thinking about my in-laws, my husband's mom and stepdad, and they recently moved out to like middle of nowhere Arizona, and they're feeling so disconnected.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's causing, I think, some health issues and things. And I'm like, man, I would love to see them in a place like this to have a community. I think that it's just so missing for them. And so I don't know, maybe Arizona, I have to add that to your list though.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
No.
I went to school in Arizona, so maybe we'll get out there at some point. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, I do think that there is a really important thing for both younger and older people to be together. That there's a wisdom in the elder, in if you go back, in generations past, elders were really held up highly, and it was because of their wisdom. And I think, that wisdom could be utilized more than it is, and that young people could benefit from it, and that older people benefit from the enthusiasm and the energy, the drive, the hunger of young people, and want to learn and want to, be relevant. And yeah, I think there's a lot more that we can be doing to bring those two demographics together and to support each other.
I think that's
Yeah.
a wonderful idea. I'm just thinking in New York, really in any community I've ever lived in, or any neighborhood, city I've ever lived in, not many elders, but in New York City, if you go up to Washington Heights, maybe you can find an abuela that will kind of take you in. But that's always been my dream to like have the grandmother figure around. And
Yeah,
I've never been a part of that. So that excites
yeah,
me.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
But a lot
yeah.
of cultures still have that.
They
Like I
do,
remember
right?
my previous where I lived in Maryland, the townhome next to me, there were 3 generations living in that townhome.
Mhm.
But you don't really see that very often anymore.
Because
You
people
don't.
Yeah.
like their space. They want in, like, I think most people would look at that and go, oh gosh, there's so many people living in there. How awful.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
maybe not.
Yeah, yeah, look, some people are gonna want different things. Some people are gonna wanna be on a golf course or in more of a suburban setting, and some people are gonna want the energy of being in a city or being in something more dense, and that's okay. I think, what we're hoping is in building these communities, regardless of where you live, you can come and engage in a way that makes you feel good for some period of time. There will be some people that love the idea of living, in an urban setting, in a dense environment, regardless of how old or what stage of life they're in. And, the same is true for something more suburban, less dense, or, in more of a nature inspired environment. But we want people to know there's a place they can go and access all the things that they're interested in, regardless of whether or not they want to live there.
Yeah. That's great. And the whole nature aspect, it's like kind of this indoor outdoor living space combined. I think I love all the greenery. Like it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think nature is really important, and, just acknowledging the realities that not everybody can go and live. Ohio, for example, is a place that doesn't have mountains or oceans. You can find great places to hike, but you got to drive there. They're not places that you want to live or that have great school districts. So,
Mm.
what we're trying to do is provide environments that allow people to have the feeling of being in nature in an urban setting. So when you come home, there's an automatic kind of release that has you connected to something that sounds and smells and looks like you'd find in a nature setting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's built into the architecture of the buildings. Like, is the design
Mhm.
eco-friendly? I guess, how do you think about the materials that are used and kind of the structural piece?
Yeah, we attempt to be mindful of the sustainability of everything that we're doing. It's certainly built into the look and the feel and the design. We have built projects that are well fit, that are designated LEED certified. So we are constantly striving to um, to hit those sustainable categories. It's difficult, it's expensive, and sometimes hard to make it all work. So it's not all perfect yet, but there's more of a focus on the feeling that people are having, the wellness side of things, that they can actually come in and connect to something that shifts their life, that improves their life, that hopefully allows them to again go out and be better and make the world a better place.
I love that.
love
I want
it's a
that in
great
New
message.
York. So I have, my sanctuary here, but it's like, oh, once I step out that door, oh, I don't know. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's the vision for the next 5-10 years for Gravity?
Well, it's continued to expand. Like I said, we're going to get into other markets. So, locally, we're just getting ready to start another phase, but we're going to also expand to Austin, Denver, Salt Lake City, Miami, a handful of markets, and bring Gravity and Greenhouse to both of those markets. And we're continuing to grow our virtual community through the podcast. And I've got a book that'll be coming out hopefully beginning next year, and just trying to continue to educate and inspire and connect, and find ways to be of service to other people.
Congrats on the book. Keep us posted.
I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, Brett, I feel like you've also done so much, I want to say, like, personal work. I mean, I've listened to your podcast. You're just an awesome person. I can just tell.
Thank you.
But I'm curious, like, do you have any advice to our listeners? And it can be outside of health and wellness. Just how do we make our lives better and be happier and give back to this amazing planet we're on? It's kind of a big question, but
yeah, it is. I mean, listen, there's so many things that I have done or do that have really made a difference in my life. And I think that each person needs to find the things that they enjoy doing that make them ultimately feel better. They might be hard, it might be difficult. I mean, every time I get in the cold plunge, I dread it. I've never once got in and thought, wow, this is lovely, right?
Yeah,
So
you're
it's
human.
hard, right? It's a challenge, all of it, but embracing that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like, finding the things that really give you energy. And I know that's broad, but really, I think that's what's most important. When you think back on your life, think back on the things that were fun, that were enjoyable, that made you feel better, and think about those things as an important data point for how you can lean into them and do more of them, both personally and professionally. For me, I get to bring all the things that I love about life into my work, and my life continues to inform my work, and they're not separate. It doesn't mean they're not hard, right? But like, every time I do something for myself, the fact that we're building communities that have transcendental meditation centers and art and music and all these modalities, these are all things that I just personally love in my own life. And I figured, if I love them, so do other people. So why not build communities around them? And that's just, an example of how I've chosen to use my life to inform my work and to create. And I think we can all do that, really look at life from the standpoint of having the ability to use it to create anything.
Yeah, I think, like, bridging this gap of like life and work, like, I think in America, it's so like, I do this for a living and then I go live my life. Like, it's such a separate thing. And I remember I heard a motivational speaker talk once. I think she lived in like Portugal or Spain for a year. And she says, you don't ever ask people over there like what you do for work.
Mhm.
Like, but in America, it's like, hi, I'm Renee. You know, what do you do?
Mhm.
Oh, I do this for work. It's like, what, why, you know, in America, we're so focused on that. So it's like, how
Mhm.
can we work and live in sync? It's, I don't know. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is when you think about it, we spend so much of our lives working. And so
yeah.
if you really kind of take a step back and you think, well, okay, if that's true and maybe, to some extent it's unavoidable, then how do I want to work? What do I want to do? If that's going to be a portion of my life, maybe a big portion of my life, then how do I want to spend my time doing that? This is something I have to remind myself about, frequently, but at the end of the day, like nobody really cares about the things that you worry about as much as you worry about them,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
and what you're doing with your work, right? Like in the big scheme of things, right? It's a very small part of it all. Um, and so why not? Why not just do something that you love? Why not just go have fun and create something that's inspiring and hopefully makes a difference in people's lives? Like, why not spend your life doing that? To me, it's it's pretty fulfilling to know that, what we're creating um is something that, hopefully makes a difference in people's lives. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
Amazing mission.
interesting. Uh, that's definitely why Renee and I got into health and biohacking. It's because
Hmm.
we like live and breathe it. But of course, there are nights sometimes if I can't sleep because I'm stressed about my work that you go, oh man, I wish I could just kind of put it down. But it's so important
Yeah.
that
Oh,
we're
it
doing
is.
this. And so I think there is like a little bit of compromise sometimes, but worth it is my point.
No doubt. I just had an artist who painted a beautiful mural at Gravity on my podcast, Adele. And, she said 50% of the time she's on the wall. She hates being an artist. Um, she
Wow.
wouldn't do anything
Yeah.
else. She can't ever imagine doing anything else. That other half is so fulfilling. She loves it. It's who she is. But it's hard, you know, being on a lift with the sun coming down, hours and hours hoping you can make your deadlines, it can be hard,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much anything can be hard. And if it's gonna be hard, you might as well love that other half. And so, what you guys do, you love it. You're together. You get to be together. You get to talk about things that you care about. You get to meet interesting people and learn from each other. It's a great way to spend your time. And if you can monetize it and create a life for yourself, why not? That's perfect to me.
Yeah,
Yeah. All of
definitely.
that.
Yeah.
That is why we do the podcast. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work. I
Yeah.
think some people think we just show up and hit record, but there's a lot of prep time. There's a lot of editing time. You know, it's a lot, but we
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
And like you
Yeah.
said, we get to talk to amazing people all around the world like you.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
fun.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, oh, did you want to ask?
I was going to say the same thing you were going to say. Sometimes we just say we're almost twins.
We are always on the same wavelength. It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
We were going to say, Brett, thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom with us today. We usually will wrap with the final question, which is, can you share one piece of advice with our audience? I think you actually already shared some great advice about how to consciously live. So maybe I'll kind of put a more specific question on you. If someone is not enjoying the life and the work that they're doing, what can they do today to start loving that a little bit more?
Mm, that's a great question. A few things come to mind right away. One of them is just share that with somebody. Just start by sharing the fact that you're not happy doing what you're doing. The other is really a tool that I go back to for people all the time, which is write out a list. I call it the love to list. Write out a list of all the things you love to do. And when you're done doing it, expand it. and keep expanding it over and over again until you just can't. And then start to look at it and think, is there something there that I could possibly do for my work? And to me, that's sort of how I landed in building conscious communities. I love design. I love architecture. I love building things in the physical space. I also loved wellness and art and music and, a lot else. And I saw it in that list, and it was like, jumping off the page to me, like, build these communities. So, I think it's just a good place to start. Talk to somebody, think about it simply, think about the things that you just love to do, and see if there's a way for you to just put a toe in the water and making them your work. And, I think it's important just to highlight that, it can be hard, all of it. And so, you might just need a mindset shift of where you are. You might need to try to reframe I have to do this till I get to do this. Sometimes it's just that simple. A lot of times it's not, but yeah, mindset I think is pretty powerful.
Great advice.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you
love
guys.
to,
It's been great to be with you, and thanks for what you're doing, and glad to be a part of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. And hopefully
Very
we can,
excited.
hopefully we can hang out in person in Austin or wherever one day.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, hopefully.
yeah.
Yeah, come to Gravity. Let's do an event together. It'd be fun.
Yes, we love that. Yeah.
Oh,
In the
all
meantime,
right.
maybe we'll sneak up to Columbus. Yeah.
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 Yeah. That'd be great. We'd love to have you.
All right.
Well,
Well,
thank you so
you.
much for joining
Yeah.
us today. This is such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you both.
Anything you want to share with our audience about where they can find you or find out more about Gravity?
Yeah, sure. We can, put links, but gravityproject.com, Brett-Kaufman.com, can reach out, Brett Kaufman on all the socials. But yeah, happy to, connect with people and be helpful however we can.
Thank you. Awesome.
Yep. We will definitely link to that in the show notes, so it's easy for everyone to follow you. All right.
Great.
Well, thank you, Brett. And thank you to everyone that tuned in today. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you guys.